What do you think Zach Wilson did on his bye week, Matthew?
I think he,
Don't be asking about nobody's stepdaddy on the TV show.
Right. He was a guest speaker. He's a very generous guy with his time. He likes to give back to the community and do like personal events. And so he had 3 different mommy and me's. He went to the classes at 3 different mommy and me's just to
Chilling.
Just to sign some autographs, take some photos.
Yeah, just network.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Kiss some babies.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. I am Jay Croucher. It's Mommy, me, Jay, Matthew, Zach. It's all of us today.
You ever been to a mommy and me?
I actually haven't. I've been to similar things, similar themed things.
Your wife is a mommy.
Yes,
You
she
have
is.
3 children.
I do.
Has she ever been to a mommy and me?
She has.
Has she ever met Zach Wilson at one of them?
Don't believe she has, and we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
I'm a bit afraid of Zach Wilson.
1,000%. I don't blame you.
He can
That's
throw
smart.
a football
That's
further
using
than
your
I
noggin
can.
right there.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. Sometimes the best offense is a good defense. You understand what I'm talking about? Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, we're going to keep Zach Wilson off the field. You know what I mean.
1,000.
Yeah.
I do understand exactly
on the
what you
sidelines
mean.
With his inaccurate arm.
Yes, his arm may be inaccurate,
Yeah,
but you know
exactly.
what? He's got pretty good aim. Elsewhere, it's noon on a Thursday on Peacock, but of course it is 5 o'clock somewhere. It's Love-Hate Day.
It's Love-Hate
Day, Jay Croucher. But first,
Roto-World headlines.
Hey,
Matthew
now.
Berry.
All right.
And let's start off with Dallas Goedert, who is on injured reserve with his shoulder injury after that face mask play. Let me just tell you some of the names on the depth chart at tight end. Jack Stoll, who we may get
Big
into.
fan.
Tyree Jackson, who's come off the PUP list. And then my favorite of all.
Former quarterback Tyree Jackson.
Yeah. And then my favorite of all, Grant Calcaterra, which I believe is an island next to Gibraltar, just off the southern coast of Spain. But he's in the mix of tight end now for the Eagles too.
But Grant Calcaterra cuts my hair, by the way. I believe he's a stylist in New York. All right, so first off, ultimately, I think it's going to be a committee. But it's notable because Goedert had such a massive target share, 21% so far this season. He's the 3rd best tight end on a points-per-game basis this year. And so who takes place? My expectation here is that if you had to throw a dart at one of these guys, Jack Stoll would be the guy. Right now, he's more of a run blocker than Calcaterra. Calcaterra is more of the pass catcher, but because they are so run heavy and because he's a better before he's a better blocker, I think Stoll will actually play more snaps, at least initially. Understand that 58% of his snaps, Stoll's this year, have come on run plays. He's run 79 routes this year. He's got 447. I mean, we are literally like sifting through sand here. Calcaterra profiles as the better pass catcher. 1 for 40 on 16 routes this year. Again, I mean, it's all super small sample size because Dallas Goedert is the man. They activate Tyree Jackson, who's an interesting prospect, like super athletic, obviously, former college quarterback, tried to make it as a quarterback in the NFL. He got converted. He got converted to tight end, which we've seen before with other quarterbacks as well. So he's sort of like a, kind of an interesting name, just you've heard of him. Yeah. But I think at least for this week, if I'm starting an Eagles tight end, it would be Jack Stoll against the Colts. But I think ideally what you're doing is you're going to the waiver wire. You're going to the waiver wire and picking up one of these tight ends.
Who are you really dropping for these? You're not dropping like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Deion Jackson for Jack Stoll, are you?
No, but I mean, you might need a starting tight end. Like if I had Goedert in a league, I have him in a couple leagues. Like he's my only tight end. I haven't been because you're starting Goedert every week. So just some of the guys that are available in over 50% of Yahoo leagues at tight end that I like. Foster Moreau, your buddy, the island of Foster Moreau, as we talked that name back in vogue.
Next to Gibraltar.
Sure. 16.5% target share in the 4 games that Darren Waller has missed. We like the matchup this week against Denver. It's one of the few areas of the field you can attack against the Broncos. Look, Mark Andrews, we're not 100% sure Mark Andrews is going to play this weekend, and even if he does, no Rashad Bateman. Could Isaiah Likely get some more snaps? 21% target share the last 2 weeks he's scored in back-to-back games. Juwan Johnson has been a top 10 fantasy tight end very sneakily in 3 of the last 4 weeks. They are going back to the Red Rifle. They announced that. We thought there might be some Jameis Winston, but Dennis Allen is like, you know what?
Looking at the tape, and it turns out Andy Dalton's great.
Yeah, we just, all the ineptitude that we've had over the last month, we want more of that.
Let's get another
We're back in.
Of ineptitude.
They might be sneakily tanking the Saints. You know what I mean? They just may be like, anyway.
Their picks? Yeah.
Regardless, the fact of the matter is there does seem to be a little bit of a connection there between Dalton and Juwan Johnson. And then, of course, Trey McBride in Arizona. Zach Ertz, 18% target share, top 3 in red zone targets. McBride, a talented rookie who's gotten more playing time and certainly is going to get even more now with Ertz on the shelf.
Yep. Okay, let's jump to Marquise Brown, who the Cardinals have designated to return from injured reserve. Ian Rappaport reporting that Brown could be activated and play in Mexico against the 49ers. Now, if Marquise Brown is active, you're just starting him, you're starting DeAndre Hopkins. But a bit of a negative impact on Rondale Moore, potentially.
See, I actually don't think so. I think Rondale Moore takes the Zach Ertz role. I mean, again, Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown is going to cut into, and understand that's a relative term, but that it affects Robbie Anderson and A.J. Green. Rondale Moore, I don't think gets affected at all. I think that's they'll have Hopkins and Hollywood on the edges, Rondale Moore in the slot. It remains to be seen how these targets get split up. Hopkins is still Hopkins, is going to get a massive target share, but Hollywood Brown had 6 games this year where he was averaging 18.3 fantasy points per game. He got double-digit targets in 4 of the 6 games he played. There's a connection there between Hollywood and Kyler Murray, going back to college, obviously this year as well. I think he's getting there just in time. Hopkins has a 33% target share since he returned, so you figure that comes down a little bit, but they throw enough that I do think actually all 3 guys might be viable, given the fact that 21% of the targets are now on the shelf with the Zach Ertz injury. So anyway, it's just worth seeing if Marquise Brown is out there. We expect him hopefully to play, again, still out there in a little over 20% of Yahoo leagues.
Yep, and they're 8-point dogs against San Francisco, so expecting that Colt McCoy is going to be throwing. It's a shame that team is such a disaster, because that offense is going to be a lot of fun when Kyler Murray gets back. Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, they've got a lot of weapons. Also a lot of weapons in Kansas City, though perhaps not as many this Sunday night on NBC against the Chargers.
And Peacock, you're a company man.
I am a company man. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, illness. Mecole Hardman, abdomen. Juju Smith-Schuster, concussion. They all missed practice on Wednesday, and it looks like it might be the Kadarius Toney show again.
90 total yards on 6 touches last week, 457 and a touchdown as a receiver. You saw the one-footed hop into the end zone. He also gets 2 rushes for 33 yards. And so, we'll see. But it is notable that Hardman, Juju, and MVS all missed practice. Now, they missed practice on a Wednesday, so this is Thursday. As of this broadcast, we'll see what happens today and Friday. But certainly, if even 2 of those 3 guys miss, you'd feel a lot better about starting Kadarius Toney, who, from week 1 to week 2 increased the number of snaps. He went from 9% to 44%. Some of that was dictated by the fact that they had no Hardman and Juju left early. But, hey, we're looking at a little bit of a mash unit here for the Chiefs in terms of their pass catchers. Worth noting as well, Jerick McKinnon has had back-to-back games with 6 receptions, 8 targets. He's available in about 80% of Yahoo leagues. If a lot of these pass catchers were to miss the game on Sunday with the Chiefs, one would expect that McKinnon would be even more involved in the passing game as well.
Yeah, with these 3 guys, you'd probably set the line at 1.5 of them is going to miss. And if 2 guys are out, then Kadarius Toney is must start. If one is out, then it's probably borderline. You're probably playing him in your flex and not feeling amazing. Yeah,
it's a little borderline, right? I mean, we expect this to be a high-scoring game. It's one of the highest on the slate. It's Chiefs-Chargers. Chargers have a pretty good pass defense, but again, what you're excited about with Kadarius Toney is not only the talent, but the versatility. They can find different ways to manufacture touches for him. And again, if guys like MVS and Mecole Hardman are going to miss this game again, 2 of their big speed guys, certainly I think they'll get creative with Kadarius Toney, who the more he's there in Kansas City, the more he gets familiar with the offense, the more he develops a chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, the more Andy Reid gets to tinker.
Yes.
That's what this is. This
is Tinker
tinkering.
Man? Is that the Tinker, the Matthew Berry Tinker animation?
Yeah, that's just so you know, like for people that are watching this silently, they're in their cubes at work and they don't want to hear it, but they're like, what's he? This is tinkering.
Yeah.
This is me being Andy Reid.
Kind of quietly terrifying. Let's go to Randall Cobb. and his ankle injury. He's looking like he's going to be back tonight against the Titans, which might cut in. Does it cut into the Christian Watson experience, the Alan Lazard experience a little bit?
He's had one game with more than 4 targets this year. He loves Randall Cobb. He doesn't throw him the ball, but he loves him. He likes having him around.
As a man.
Yeah, as a man, as a human being, as a person, as a ayahuasca buddy. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? We never know. Guy has a 12% target share, or so far this season. So I'm bringing it up just to dismiss it. It doesn't matter to me. If you were going to start Christian Watson or Alan Lazard, I would continue to do so. I'm not worried about Randall Cobb. Very quickly, just want to whip through a couple of other very quick headlines just to put on your radar. Big Mike Williams and Keenan Allen returned to practice yesterday for the Chargers. They did some individual drills. Again, we'll see as the week progresses, but so far, positive signs pointing to those guys returning for Justin Herbert and the Chargers. By the way, it looks like Jameson Williams is going to be activated by the Lions after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So if you have a roster spot in your league, worth kind of seeing if he's out there and stashing, because we know the upside of Jameson Williams, so he'll be available in a couple of weeks. And then David Johnson, our old friend David Johnson, former fantasy royalty, former #1 overall pick in fantasy, has been signed by the New Orleans Saints to their practice squad. And the only reason I bring it up is it's sort of interesting, right? Because Mark Ingram's banged up. Remember, the Saints were one of the teams that tried to make a claim on Benjamin. He ends up going to the Texans, but both the Chiefs and the Saints made a bid to try to get Benjamin. Just makes you think that they tried to get Benjamin. They're signing David Johnson. They obviously have some concerns about the depth on that team behind Alvin Kamara.
Yep, feels like you might have one moment. David Johnson. Who knows?
You never know. But it's just I wanted to point that out there. And certainly Mark Ingram clearly not 100%.
Yep. Okay, let's jump to running back love-hate.
It is love-hate, by the way. Love-hate available right now for free on rotoworld.com, NBCSportsEdge.com. It's always free, and it's available now. You can pause us if you want and go read it.
Yes,
or listen to us talk about some of the players on it.
Yes, get a head start on it. Let's start off with a guy who is often on this list, Ramondre Stevenson.
Yes,
he's on the love list again against the New York Jets.
I went to town on sort of the Ramondre puns, by the way. I'm just letting you know in the column, something to look forward to. But
look forward to
he is, I've loved this guy. I've loved him in the preseason, loved him all season long, and finally Bill Belichick loves him. Since week 3, he's the 6th best running back in fantasy. He's had at least 19 fantasy points in 5 of the last 7. He's averaging over 20 touches per game in that stretch. And here's what's exciting for me and Mac Jones. Last 3 games, a 25% target share, 18 receptions on 22 targets in just the last 3 games there. You see it there on your screen, just all the fantasy production he's had so far. And so going against the Jets, who he had a successful game against in Week 8. You see it there on your screen. Week 8 against these same Jets, 21.3 fantasy points off the bye. 2 weeks to prepare for Robert Saleh's squad. Give me Ramondre Stevenson as a top 10 play this week.
Yep. I cannot overstate how bad Mac Jones was in that Jets game in Week 8. All Jets fans will know this, as I include myself in that group.
You're in, you're out on the Jets. Take a flag.
I'm in on Sauce Gardner. I'm a Sauce Gardner.
You've always been a Sauce Gardner guy. That one I will give you.
That stays true. But
yes.
Mac Jones threw a pick 6 in that game that should have basically ended it and made it 17-3. Got called back because of a roughing penalty that had nothing to do with the throw. I don't think that they're going to be airing it out with Mac Jones against a very good New York secondary. So all in on Ramondre Stevenson.
I agree.
Let's go to David Montgomery, who hasn't been the sexiest name all season. Khalil Herbert has taken the kind of sexiness equity in that Chicago backfield, but he is on IR. And you like David Montgomery against the Falcons.
We talked about him yesterday with Lawrence Jackson here on the show as well. But in case you missed yesterday's show or you just want to hear me repeat it, the fact of the matter is you're right. Without Khalil Herbert there, David Montgomery, they don't have anyone else that, whatever. Ebner's going to get 5 touches maybe, in this thing. Yeah. But it's going to be the David Montgomery show against the Falcons. Think about this. There was weeks 3 and 4 in which David Montgomery was out. And so in those 2 games, Khalil Herbert had 42 touches. By the way, that averages out to 21 touches a game. Did that math literally on my head. I don't like to brag and show off, but just want to let you guys know. Literally just right up here. Just, using my noggin. Just really impressive stuff right there. Just boom, immediately. 42 touches, 2 games, boom. In half, what does that equal? 21 per game. That's the average. Just something to think about.
Yeah.
Just again,
should be a
it's
trader
science
at
is
BetMGM.
what it is. I really should be a trader.
Yeah.
I should have had your job. The fact of the matter is that, so we expect him to get in the neighborhood of 21 touches. By the way, 6 of the 7 running backs to face the Falcons this year that have seen at least 17 touches have scored 18 or more fantasy points. Given the mobility of Justin Fields, teams have to keep a spy linebacker on Fields. He opens up running lanes for Montgomery. So just massive volume and a great matchup against a bottom 10 run defense in the Falcons over the last 4 weeks. Montgomery is a top 12 play for me this week.
Yep, the total is 49.5 at BetMGM, which is
high-scoring
sneaky
game.
high for Chicago-Atlanta, which is actually, expected to be a shootout, so should be a lot of touchdown opportunities for D-Mont. Devin Singletary, not sure exactly where he's going to be playing, whether it's in Buffalo, where thunder snow is expected,
Right.
or it's in Detroit, which will be anti-thunder snow, as it'll be in a dome.
Right.
So, but regardless, he's going to be playing the Cleveland Browns run defense, which doesn't really like to defend the run.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, listen, we'll see what's going to happen. I mean, that's going to be a major story, and we'll talk about this throughout the week. And obviously, Sunday morning on Fantasy Football pregame, myself and you, we will talk about that. But right as of now, massive snow is expected in Buffalo on Sunday. So we'll see if they play the game there or if they move it. But ultimately, even if it's snowing heavily, they're going to want to run the ball, especially against Cleveland, that allows the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs so far this year. They've given up multiple rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs in 5 of the last 6 games. Singletary, who over the last 4 games is averaging 15.5 touches a game, so he's going to touch the ball a lot in a great matchup. 8 of the 10 running backs to see 12 touches in a game against the Browns have scored a touchdown. Both Mostert, friend of the podcast, Raheem Mostert, and Jeff Wilson Jr. scored against them last week. Devin Singletary, running back 17 for me this week.
Yep, I like that. The total is 42.5 on BetMGM. I actually like the over because the game might be played in a dome. Just one thing to consider. You get a fair bit of upside there. Let's go to others receiving votes.
And you know where else you have a fair bit of upside? If you use the promo code Barry when you bet on BetMGM.
So you're going to talk about your upside with your math ability or something.
Well, I mean, that's
pretty
not
tough.
upside. That's
Pretty
just like,
kind of
that's
defined
just
ceiling.
obvious. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, the
it's
upside
like,
has been
you
tapped.
know what I am? I'm a mathlete.
You are a mathlete?
I'm a mathlete.
Okay, as opposed to an athlete.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a mathlete. That's what I am. I'm like I'm a little body by algebra right here. Is what you got.
All right,
Like,
let's please get to some others receiving votes.
Yeah.
Headlined by shock horror.
I could can I show you? I can do some geometry to show you what Zach Wilson in a Mommy and Me class looks like. Would you like me to do that?
No, I don't.
Just some geometry, just some shapes, right?
Please don't. Yeah.
Right.
Can we talk about Antonio Gibson?
All right. Sure.
All right. Let's do others receiving
What's
votes.
your favorite geometry shape? Mine's always been the rhombus.
Trapezoid?
The rhombus. The trapezoid's a good one.
Yeah.
The trapezoid's a really good one. That's an underrated one. Nice pull.
Yeah.
There.
Thank you.
I've always been a rhombus
I was going to say
guy.
triangle, but then you get more creative.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Look, here's just some others receiving votes in terms of from running backs. Gibson and Robinson against the historically bad Texans defense. No team in the NFL is worse against the run, especially over the last 4 weeks where they're giving up 184 rushing yards per game. Isaiah Pacheco, again, seeing about bad defenses. Chargers 31st against the run over the last 4 weeks. Pacheco has had over 5 yards per carry in all 3 games that he's gotten double-digit carries. We expect him to do that against the Chargers on Sunday night. Gus Edwards, hopefully he should be back for the Ravens as well. I was a top 30 play today against the Carolina Panthers, team that allows the 6th most rushing yards per game to running back. And hey, how about Elijah Mitchell? Even though CMC's going to get his, Mitchell's actually who led the Niners backfield with 19 touches and last week. Goal, according to Kyle Shanahan, is to have about even split between Mitchell and CMC. They play the Arizona Cardinals this week as well. So Mitchell, I think, is viable even in games in which CMC is healthy.
I think we should legally formalize the name of the Houston Texans as the historically bad run defense of the Houston Texans.
They are brutal. So yeah, Edwards and Mitchell just come in inside my top 30. As always, with any of these love and hates, check my rankings out to see specifically. Love and hate is always about just expectations. My rankings are up, and they are free on NBCSportsEdge.com, rotoworld.com.
Yep. All right, let's get to hate, headlined by Miles Sanders, the guy that you were lukewarm on in the preseason. He goes up against...
Thanks for bringing that up because I was dead wrong, by the way.
The pendulum might be swinging back.
Well, by the way, I was wrong on him, but so was Miles Sanders.
Yes.
Miles Sanders told us not to draft Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, you get a mulligan on
that. The concern on Miles Sanders, Jay, to your point here, is the lack of passing game usage. Right? So over the last 4 games, he has 1 receiving yard.
That's not
I
great.
can count the number of total receiving yards he has in the last 4 games on one hand.
An athlete.
And I don't need. I could save 4 fingers.
Yeah.
You want to see one?
I've
got 1 finger for you. Well, we're in a full screen here, but you see the finger that I'm holding up to represent the 1 yard that Miles Sanders has in the receiving game. He's got a 2% target share over the last month, right? And so you think about this, it is low. See, look at you. You're catching on. You might be an athlete yourself. This is not a good matchup with the Colts. Last 4 weeks, Jeff Sunday's squad is allowing just 3.4 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That's 3rd lowest in the NFL. They've given up 1 rushing touchdown. Count it, 1 rushing touchdown to a running back in the last month. Under 80 rushing yards allowed to running backs in 3 of the last 4. So Sanders, you probably still have to start him, but he's my running back 22, given the lack of passing game usage and this tough matchup against the Colts.
Eagles are going to be losing that game, Matthew. They're going to have to be throwing.
I
Colts
know.
win. Colts win. 6.5-point dogs.
I like that call.
They just win.
I like the call, man.
All right. Team that doesn't win, Carolina Panthers. Deontay Foreman is on the hate list going up against the suddenly stout Ravens rushing defense, and they're probably not going to have the game script to run either.
To your point, they're 11-point underdogs here. Foreman has just a 7% target share over the last 4 weeks and 0 receptions in half the games over the last month. And so if they're down big to the Ravens, which that's what BetMGM and others in Vegas suspect, then how much passing game work does he get? Could it be more Chuba Hubbard in this one? Baltimore allows the 4th fewest rushing yards to opposing running backs, so Foreman outside my top 20. Despite the fact how good he's been since McCaffrey got traded, he comes in at running back 23 for me this week.
Yep. Okay, let's quickly talk about Kareem Hunt, who it's gone south for Kareem Hunt after a good start to the season. He might be playing in that thunder snow, so maybe they will be running the ball, but against Buffalo, don't expect the game script will be kind there either.
Under 8 touches and under 20 scrimmage yards in 3 of the last 4 games. Under 8 touches. And when he doesn't see 14 touches, and 14 touches is a lot, when he doesn't get at least 14 touches, he's averaging 5.2 fantasy points per game. That's what we're talking about here. 5.2 fantasy points per game. He's had a total of 4, count them, 4 red zone touches in the last month here. It's been Nick Chubb. I don't know what it is, but they don't seem to like Kareem Hunt all that much. You don't love the matchup with Buffalo as well. To your point, the expectation here is that they're down and they're going to have to throw.
Yep. Okay, let's go to break. When we come back, pass, catcher, love, hate, headlined by some of the big names. Jacoby Myers, Darius Slayton, Foster Moreau.
Yeah, baby.
If you want the full list of love-hate this week, you can get it all, as well as Matthew Berry's rankings and other Roto-World content for free at NBCSportsEdge.com. That's right, for free. You pay no money. And Matthew, couldn't help but notice this week, you like to open your columns with stories, and this one was one of the craziest stories you've done an opener for.
So I've been playing fantasy sports since I was 14 years old. I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, but I'm a lot older than 14. Right, and I've been writing about fantasy sports professionally since the year 2000.
Yes,
over 2 decades. I wrote a book called Fantasy Life, which had hundreds upon hundreds of stories, and I got thousands upon thousands of stories submitted for that book. So I have heard it all.
Yes,
it is hard to shock me. I can't tell you how many times somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, I got a story you won't believe," and I'm like, "I'll listen to it." I'm like, Yeah, I believe it. You know why? Because I've written that story like 3 different times over the past 2 decades.
Yes.
So it is hard to shock me. And this week, Jay, I got a story that I had never heard.
Yes.
Guy gets a new job. My buddy Fabian, but everyone calls him Fabe, right?
Okay.
So all right, so
sure.
That's his real name, Fabe. Okay. So anyway, Fabe joins this new company, decides as a way to maybe get to know some of the people that are spread around the country, he wants to start a fantasy football league. So he reaches out to some other people. His boss is going to be the co-commissioner. Great. So they're starting this work league. They got 1 spot left. It's a 12-team league. And he's just like, you know what? My girlfriend keeps wanting to play. Why don't I put my girlfriend in the league? So the girlfriend says yes. So the girlfriend, Lisa, she joins the league. And they've been dating about 7 months at this point, right? So pretty serious.
Sure.
And anyway, he realizes he's 49, she's 45. So they're adults, you know what I mean? And and they've had kids from previous marriages, the whole thing. So Fabe at this point in his life is looking for the one.
Yes.
Right? And he realizes that as much as he likes Lisa, she's not the one. So why prolong this? So he breaks up with her. No drama, no fight, no third person, no one was cheating, anything like that. But just, listen, I don't think you're the one. We're not going to get married someday, so I want to break up with you. So he breaks up with her. But obviously, he's not going to kick her out of the league. Like, she's still in the league, right? He's right. And they were friends before they dated and the whole thing. So she's in the league. So he starts noticing, he starts noticing her doing like weird lineup stuff. Like she was really good. She was like 4-1 entering like week 6. And then he notices like she benched a lot of her stars for some bench players, thought it was weird, but whatever, maybe she had a gut call. She's done really well so far. I don't think about it. The next week, it's the Thursday night game that the Buccaneers are playing on Thursday night, and she notices that she benches Mike Evans for a player on a bye.
No. And
it's just like, what is this woman doing? What, and he's talking to the co-commissioner, what do we do? Everything like that. Doesn't know what to do. So he's just like, all right, well, it was just like, well, can you speak to her? I haven't spoke to her since we've broken up. Yep. Can you, talk to her? I don't know her, dude. She's your girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend. What do we do? So they're trying to figure out how to handle this, like, because clearly she's doing something. And before they come up with a plan on how to address it, it no longer matters because they wake up in the morning and they go to the app to try to open, make moves on the league, and the league isn't there. The league no longer exists. She got the guy's password, went into ESPN, and deleted the league. She deleted the league. She was there when Fabe set up the league, so she knew his ESPN password. And so she went in as him, and it's week 8, and she deleted the entire league.
You know what the best thing about this is the progression where first she's benching Mike Evans for guys on a bye, and then it slowly increased in madness.
Right.
When is the league?
Town.
Why'd you have to put Mike Evans on your bench?
Right, no, exactly. I think what it was is like the first thing she's like, she basically takes a game, and then no one notices. It's just like, all right, whatever. Then she literally benches a star player for somebody on a bye, and again, she doesn't get a reaction because they're still figuring out what to do. So then she's like, okay, fine. Oh, you didn't notice any of that? Okay, here we go. Here comes the nuclear bomb. She deletes the entire league.
That's great.
That's Game of Thrones crazy stuff. And so I'll just tell 2 quick codas here, and there's more details in the story, and so I recommend reading it. And if you want to see the entire text chain of this league, which is hilarious, you got to go check it out, rotoworld.com, NBCSportsEdge.com. It is, as always, free. But there's 2 things. Number one is they reached out to me, and luckily, listen, I left ESPN on good terms. I still have a lot of friends there, friends in high places. I know all the guys that run the league manager system over at ESPN. They're all great guys. And so I texted one of them and said, like, hey, and I was able to get the league ID. And anyway, so I fixed it, and he was able to reactivate the league. So first off, I think the moral of the story is that I'm the savior. Right, exactly. It makes me look good. Just exactly. There's a reason why I'm in the MCU. I'm in the Avengers for a reason, right? Like not all heroes wear capes.
Yes.
Asked and answered, right?
Mandela, Barry, the list goes on.
Right, and maybe not even in that order.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the other important lesson here, Jay, is that don't play fantasy football with crazy people.
Yes.
And if you have to find yourself in a league with a crazy person, don't break up with them until after the year. Right? It's like, when you're dating, like, don't break up just before Valentine's Day or a holiday. Like, whatever, get the gift. Whatever it is. Like, just, right, I want to break up with this person, but I've got, like, we're going to a wedding in 3 weeks, like, I don't want to go stag. Like, all right, just be smart about it.
Okay. Lisa, if you're watching, have we got some great fantasy advice coming up for you? Let's get into pass, catch, and love, hate.
Lisa, if you're watching, you're crazy town. Like, go somewhere else.
So, Lisa this week would have benched CD Lamb for, I don't know, Rashad Bateman or something, but you're not benching CD Lamb.
No, I was a top 3 wide receiver play.
Sense.
Like, it makes no sense. Like, so far this year, CD Lamb has a 32% target share.
That's pretty high.
Like, it's insane, right? Over the last 4 weeks, by the way, you love this matchup. So a guy that's going to get a ton of targets in a great matchup as the Vikings allow the most catches and the second most yards to wide receivers. He may not need to go all the way up. I think he'll be, there's a little bit of gamesmanship there. He's got Justin Jefferson on the other side, so maybe he tries to show off for that too. But wide receivers that have seen at least 7 targets against the Vikings this year, averaging 19.4 fantasy points per game. Again, you see it there on your screen in terms of the target share leaders. No one gets the ball more than C.D. Lamb.
Yep, I'm going to predict C.D. Lamb has a better game than Justin Jefferson this
I like
week.
that call.
Also, good to see Darnell Mooney on that list. The much maligned Darnell Mooney has turned his season around.
Yeah,
Courtland Sutton
and has a good matchup with Atlanta this week.
Courtland Sutton will have a chance to turn his season around against the vaunted defense of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, you may be sensing a theme here, but I like wide receivers that get a lot of targets, that have a lot of opportunities to put up fantasy points. Ever since Jerry Jeudy went down, right, he got 11 targets last week. Courtland Sutton did. He had a 28% target share last week. And so in the 7 games last year when Jerry Jeudy missed, he averaged 15.8 fantasy points per game. He had a 25% target share. And so the expectation here is that with no Jerry Jeudy on Sunday, Russell Wilson is going to look for Courtland Sutton early and often. You like this matchup against the Raiders as well, as Vegas has allowed the highest catch rate to opposing wide receivers so far this season.
Yep, and Russell Wilson, who we'll get into, had his best game of the season, maybe his only good game of the season against those Raiders.
Yeah, Sutton is wide receiver 13 for me this week.
Let's jump to Rondale Moore, who established a bit of a rapport with the great Colt McCoy. Looks like he's going to start again. And even with Marquise Brown looking like he's going to come back, Rondale Moore is still on the
Thank you,
list.
by the way, for pronouncing it rapport and not report, which I thought you might have done.
No. We don't say that in Australia.
Okay, got it.
We're very much in line with the French pronunciation.
Interesting. Okay, understood. Well, what I will tell you is like we talked about earlier in the show, that my expectation is that normally with Hollywood Brown coming back, you'd think like, oh, well, it was fun while it lasted, Rondale Moore. But because of the injury to Zach Ertz, my expectation here is that Rondale Moore still gets a pretty big workload here, right? With Colt McCoy, who doesn't have a biggest arm, and so Rondale Moore, so much of his stuff is near the line of scrimmage. There was Colt McCoy was looking for him early and often. 37% target share for Rondale Moore in week number 10. He's had 3 straight weeks where he's finished as a top 20 wide receiver. He's had at least 6 receptions in every game of the last 6 except for 1. He comes in at wide receiver 15 for me. Again, if we get some reports out of how we expect Hollywood Brown to be integrated into this offense, maybe he lowers a little bit, and maybe I'll be wrong on this one. Maybe there just won't be enough targets to go around, but especially in a tough matchup against the Niners. But I'm in on Rondale Moore. I think he's a talented guy, and I think, especially given Colt McCoy and where that offense goes to Zach Ertz, I do think Rondale Moore continues to be viable.
Yep, they're going to need to be throwing a lot in that game. George Kittle on the other side of the ball in that game in Mexico. He's on the love list. Arizona not too good at defending tight ends.
Yeah, listen, you see a tight end going against Arizona, Olay. You understand what I'm talking about? You're throwing a sombrero into the air because you're so excited. 9 different times this year, a tight end has scored double-digit fantasy points against Arizona. The Cardinals have allowed the most yards and the most receptions to opposing tight ends this season. When you see your tight end facing Arizona, you start your tight end against Arizona, and then when it's George Kittle, you're even more excited. He's my tight end 3 this week.
That makes sense. All right, let's jump to some others receiving votes headlined by Tyler Boyd. This might be the last week without Jamar Chase, so expect that he will eat against the Steelers.
Steelers have allowed 3 touchdowns to the slot in their last 2 games, and they allowed the 4th most yards per game to the slot. No Jamar Chase, to your point, so it should be the Higgins and Boyd show against the Steelers. You talked about Jacoby Myers when we were talking about Stevenson. Jets allow the 5th most receptions per game to the slot, so Myers, who runs most of his routes out of the slot, should have another good game against the Jets. Remember, he had 9 catches against the Jets in Week 8. Paris Campbell, with Matt Ryan back under center, Paris Campbell continues to get a lot of love from Matt Ryan. In all 3 games that Ryan has started this year, or the last 3 games, I should say, the last 3 games with Matt Ryan as quarterback, over 20 fantasy points per game, at least 18 fantasy points in all of them. Darius Slayton, we talked about him, top of the show as well. At least 11.5 fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games. He gets Detroit, which you love. Cole Kmet should be in your lineup. Atlanta allows the 6th most yards per game to opposing tight ends. 39% target share last week for Cole Kmet. It's a great matchup. And finally, Foster Moreau, the island of Foster Moreau. Broncos have allowed 60 or more yards to tight ends 3 of the past 4 games. We talked about him as a Goedert replacement. Worth seeing if Kmet is somehow still available in your league. I highly doubt it at this point, but he's not 100% rostered for whatever weird reason. So Kmet is a top 10 tight end for me. Moreau comes in at tight end 13. He's still out there in a ton of leagues.
Yep.
And like I said, it's not a great – people look at Denver and oh, I'm nervous, but you can actually attack the tight end against the Broncos.
You can. The real estate market on the island of Foster Moreau is skyrocketing. He is going to be in for a big week. Maybe not in for a big week. Deontay Johnson, who is on the hate list against the Bengals.
Since week 3, he doesn't have not one game with more than 11 fantasy points.
Is that bad?
Yes, that is not good. He's had single-digit fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. 19% target share last week. Bengals allow the 3rd fewest receptions to opposing wide receivers. Like, he hasn't scored a touchdown this year. Massive targets. He hasn't scored a touchdown. And it's a weird, fluky thing, but, like, how long are you going to sit here and wait, for him to get into the end zone? And so I'm going to do you a favor, guys. This is me falling on the sword. Your pal Matty here is taking one for the team. I'll take the bullet. I don't mind. I'll go in solo. Well, I'll dive into the shallow league here.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say
Mandela.
by putting 1,000%, right?
Manberry.
Right. Manberry, right? Listen, some people are saying, not me, but some people are saying I should be honored with a Nobel Prize for my work, not only with saving Fabe's league, but also by doing what I'm about to do now, which is I'm putting Deontay Johnson on the hate list. And by me putting him on the hate list, he's going off. Yeah, exactly. Like, we've tried everything in the world to get Deontay Johnson going, and so the only thing I have left is to just put him on the hate list and be like, do not start him. At which point he will then, of course, go off.
Yes.
And then you can take to Twitter to yell at me. That'll be fun. That's the dance you and I do.
They have the weirdest offense in the league, the Steelers. Like, one of these talented pass catchers, Claypool gone obviously, but still between Deontay, Pickens, Fryermuth, Najee Harris, obviously a huge talent. Maybe Matt Canada's not getting the most out of those guys, which I think Steelers fans would agree with.
Doesn't look like he is, eh?
Yes. Very bad. All right. Adam Thielen.
Because, see, his last name's Canada.
I know, yes.
Right, and a lot of that's kind of a stereotypical thing for Canadians to say is A.
Yes, I liked as well.
I just want you to know, I considered a Mountie joke, and I considered like a maple syrup joke, or a Canadian bacon joke.
Yeah.
But I went with the more subtle A.
Yes.
Because why hit somebody over the head with it?
Exactly.
You don't want to my comedy is much more subtle. It's much more like kind of under the radar. I don't like to hit people over the head.
Yeah.
I don't like to beat jokes into the ground. You know this about me.
It's a very dry sense of humor.
Yes.
There's
anyway.
no liquid.
No,
in that humor,
1,000%.
I liked as well how you clarified that when you olay that you throw the sombrero into the air, as opposed to having it remain on your head.
Because the Monday night game is in Mexico.
Yes, in Mexico. Yeah,
right,
exactly right.
And that's where the sombrero is from.
Yes.
Right.
That's where it hails from.
Right. Yes.
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 All right. Let's talk about Adam Thielen.
Sure.
Yeah. Not a great year for Adam Thielen.
Dude.
He's been getting a decent amount of targets, but at the same time, just hasn't happened. Not the same touchdown performances.
And that's the problem. He is touchdown dependent, right? He's had 7 games in which he hasn't scored a touchdown, and in 5 of them, he's had single-digit fantasy points. The addition of T.J. Hawkinson is great for the Vikings, not great for Adam Thielen, as there's now another big target in the red zone. The 2 games since T.J. came over, he's got a 15% target share. Prior to Hawkinson joining the team, he had north of 20%. Only once this season have the Dallas Cowboys allowed 12 or more fantasy points to multiple wide receivers in the same game. We feel pretty good about the fact that Justin Jefferson is going to get there. So what are the odds that Adam Thielen also does as well? He makes the hate list. He's wide receiver 30 for me. And honestly, if it wasn't for 4 teams on a bye, he'd be even lower.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about Tyler Higbee, who gets a tough matchup against the Saints, who are great against tight ends. So it looks like he'll probably have Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball at least.
So that's a positive, and I think a lot of people are excited about Higbee just because for much of the year, he was the second best Rams pass catcher after my little Cooper Kupp. My little Cooper Kupp now officially on injured reserve. He's out for at least the next 4 weeks. So does that mean Tyler Higbee's going to suddenly go off? And the answer, Jay Croucher, is actually no. Not against the Saints. Not against the Saints. They've allowed double-digit fantasy points to a tight end once this season. Once. I take that back. They have yet. They haven't even done that yet. I misread my notes here. There's been one tight end to have over 40 yards against the Saints. None have 60. So you're hoping for a touchdown, right? You're like, well, if he's going to get like 40 yards or whatever, well, maybe he'll get into the end zone. Can I count on pay dirt from Tyler Higbee? And no, you cannot.
No, you cannot.
Because the Saints have allowed only 1 touchdown to a tight end this entire year.
Okay.
This entire year.
Yeah, weird cadence and accent. But on that note, let's go to break.
I've been up all night writing love hate. I'm goofy.
We come back, quarterback love hate.
I'm punch drunk.
Headlined by everyone's favorite quarterback of 2022, Russell Wilson. And by everyone, I mean no one.
When you're on top of the mountain like I am, saving lives, it's just, sometimes it
Please stop.
gets to you.
What is the one thing that you feel like you can't do? Because it's obviously not dancing.
I can't.
Actually, you can work on dancing.
I can work on that.
You can work on that.
I really can dance if I wanted to now. You know, I got a little rhythm with me. But
the feet are backwards.
yeah, because I was being funny at that time.
I just really thought the footwork would work with dancing, and it just seems like it hasn't really translated. So we're gonna work on that. That's all. I wanted to break down a little bit of that.
All right, say less. We're gonna work on that. We're gonna work on the dancing, man.
All right, that was Lamar Jackson with Maria Taylor. Lamar Jackson, better dancer than Jalen Hurts, better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. You can catch that full FNIA interview on the NFL on NBC YouTube channel.
I know you haven't watched the full interview. I have. But what's weird is that you have to watch through the whole thing. But like towards the end, Maria asks Lamar, she says, listen, as you know, you were Jay Croucher's ride or die, but Matthew Berry went with Jalen Hurts. Your thoughts? And he goes, I would go with Jalen as well. Yeah. It's super weird. It's just like, listen, I think I'm good, but like I ain't Jalen Hurts. It's just weird. But like, just watch the.
It's a weird.
Like, I'm just saying, just go to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel and just watch the interview.
It is very strange when he says that.
Yeah.
Apropos of nothing.
I was very surprised. I was appreciative of Maria asking. Yeah. And then I was surprised because I would have thought he picked himself. But even him, Lamar Jackson, who sees the field so wonderfully, he knows. He knows. He's like, he's just like, I'm good, but I'm not Jalen Hurts for fantasy.
True. Well,
he's like, I don't have A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I have Devin Duvernay.
I have Devin Duvernay.
Yeah, you really let me down, Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson's not on the love list because of your personal vendetta against Lamar Jackson, but Dak Prescott is on the love list with a pretty favorable matchup against the Vikings.
Yeah, over the last 4 games, the Minnesota Vikings have allowed over 20 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks to face them have scored at least 18 fantasy points. They've given up multiple passing touchdowns in 3 of the last 4 games. 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks to face the Vikings have thrown for over 300 yards. We love CeeDee Lamb in this game as well. So my expectation here is, and the line is, I think, 47.5. So we think a lot of points are going to be scored here, and you see the points there, right? I mean, like Teddy Britt. It's not like against the Vikings. It's Taylor Heineke had a big game against them. Like Teddy Bridgewater, had fantasy points against them. Like it's
the Bills did whatever they wanted in that game.
Yes.
Just Josh Allen lost his mind a couple of times and also fumbled in his own end zone as well. So I think the Cowboys are going to destroy them in that game. That's my call. I think the Cowboys will get right and win comfortably.
So you're taking the Cowboys -1?
I am taking the Cowboys -1. I think that should be closer to a field goal. Let's talk about Daniel Jones, the leader of the 7-2 New York Giants. Now, I don't like talking about the Washington Commanders being good and everything, but every person I talk to who's like a professional bettor, they all tell me the Commanders are better than the Giants. The Giants are the worst team in the NFC East, but they are 7-2, and that's largely because of Daniel Jones, who's on the love list.
And they got a good chance to go to 8-2 because
it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, but they play the Detroit Lions. And certainly, because of the rushing of Daniel Jones, I think he's very viable this week, right? No team in the NFL allows more rushing yards per game to opposing quarterbacks than the Detroit Lions. They're giving up 41.3 fantasy points per game. 4 different quarterbacks have run for over 40 yards against the Lions. And so it's okay, fine. Justin Fields, you expect that. Jalen Hurts, okay, fair enough. Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers put up 40 on them. So they're bottom 5 in yards per pass attempt as well. The Lions, just struggle, I think. So because of the rushing ability, the emergence of Darius Slayton, remember, the Lions are 25th against the pass over the last 4 weeks as well. You can move the ball a variety of ways against Detroit. So Daniel Jones is a top 10 play for me this week.
Yep. Lions are +3 in that game. I kind of like the Lions. I think they're like a similar team to the Giants.
Yeah.
I think that offense as well, particularly when Jameson Williams comes back, that's going to be a really fun offense in the back half of the season. Even if every game is largely meaningless for the Lions, I do think they're going to be pretty fun the rest of the way.
And hopefully, by the way, we see more DeAndre Swift this week as well. Jamal Williams didn't practice yesterday. Just something to,
something to monitor.
Something to monitor. It might be Justin Jackson season if Jamal doesn't practice again today, and doesn't seem like they want to give a full workload yet.
Not the most wonderful season out there. Not really kind of like full of rays of sunshine. Justin Jackson season, but he might get a run. Now, you're a brave man, Matthew Berry, as many heroes are, and you've got Russell Wilson on your love list, despite being Russell Wilson.
I'm not the hero you want, but I am the hero you need.
It's debatable, but I'll allow the sentence.
I appreciate that. Look, Russell Wilson.
Actually, I'm not allowing the sentence. I changed my mind.
Damn it. Oh, well. What are you going to do? Well, you may have to allow Russell Wilson onto the love list because he's there. I got news for you. Like, look, my chances of putting Russell Wilson on the love list are few and far between. So when I get an opportunity, I'm going to take it. And against the Raiders, that's that opportunity. They allow the second most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. They revived Matt Ryan and the Colts last week, and now here comes Russell Wilson, who the last time he played the Raiders earlier this year had 27.5 fantasy points. It's his only game this year with over 15 fantasy points, Russell Wilson. 8 of the 9 quarterbacks that faced Las Vegas this year have scored at least 17 fantasy points. They're giving up passing touchdowns at the third highest rate so far this season. So Russell Wilson is my number 11 quarterback this week. As you see it there on your screen, the numbers that he did against the Raiders in Week 4, they did indeed ride.
They did. The Broncos are 2.5-point favorites in that game on BetMGM. People just can't quit the Broncos. No. At the same time, the Raiders, they have the worst pass rush in the NFL, which is impressive because they have Max Crosby, who's like one of the 3 best pass rushers in the NFL, but they are insipid at the moment. Obviously, they brought the great Matt Ryan back to life with his arm and with his legs.
And with his legs, that's the other thing that's
might
crazy.
Be an opportunity for Russell Wilson to do some work on the ground as well.
Yeah, no doubt.
With the hamstring and everything hopefully fully healed. Let's jump into some others receiving votes. Some big names. One relatively big name in Jimmy Garoppolo, sandwiched in between Marcus Mariota and Taylor Heineke, who both have favorable matchups.
Yeah, I think if the Warriors cheerleaders had Mariota or Heineke on their fantasy team this week, they'd come by and say hi, just like they did with Garoppolo at the game the other week. Mariota has at least 17 fantasy points in 4 of the past 6. It's not always 4 of the past 6. It's not always pretty, but he does seem to get it done fantasy-wise. At least 40 rushing yards in all 4 of those games. Bears allow the 7th most rushing yards per game to quarterbacks here. Again, we expect game script to be working in Mariota's favor here. Garoppolo gets Arizona, who over the last 4 weeks have allowed the 2nd most passing yards per game. 9 touchdown passes allowed in that stretch. That's tied for the most in the NFL. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, CMC out of the backfield. Garoppolo is QB 14 for this week. And how about Taylor Heineke? Again, they're going to go run heavy, but they're also allowing 9.1 yards per pass attempt. That's the most in the NFL over the last 4 weeks. They're giving up a 118 passer rating. Taylor Heineke knows that, Carson Wentz might be waiting in the wings. So, I like me some Taylor Heineke. A little bit of YOLO, gets you a little bit of points with his legs.
Do you want them to stick with Heineke?
Kinda.
Yeah, you do. Even though you know Wentz is better. You just want the chains. You want the chains, the swag.
They play better for Heineke, and I think it's some football is in many ways an intangible sport. It deals in intangibles, right? Like, again, from a physical standpoint, Tom Brady is not the most gifted quarterback to play in the NFL. He's not even close in terms of just physical gifts, right? Like, he doesn't have a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes-like arm.
No.
He doesn't have a Aaron Rodgers, I can throw it into a bucket this big from 80 yards out accuracy of Aaron Rodgers. But what Tom Brady has is like these unbelievable intangible, you know what I mean? Like just ice in his veins and the ability to read defenses and to put the ball where he needs to, like, you know what I mean? And he's the greatest of all time for a reason. He is a GOAT for a reason. So, yes, from a physical standpoint, Heineke cannot match Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is a better physical quarterback. But I don't know that he's the better player or the better person for the Commanders right now.
You know what I loved? The celebration from Heineke after the personal foul to effectively seal the game.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz would never have done that. He would never have sniffed that. He would have walked silently back and he won the game.
Heineke was a backup in the XFL.
Yeah.
He was a backup in the XFL. Like, he knows, like, he's playing with house money right now. He's excited, and he knows, like, there's a quarterback on the team that's making $28 million this year, and it ain't him.
Yep.
So Heineke's going for it. He's YOLO.
All he does is win. Another guy
he's like a young Matthew Berry out there.
Okay, all right.
He's just like, whatever, I'm just going for it. What do I care?
Absolutely must transition to the hate list.
I'm the same way.
That comment.
I'm on borrowed time.
Yep.
At some point the NBC executives are like, wait, how many Zach Wilson MILF jokes is he making? Like, all right, come on, we've got to do something, right? And so, I'm just, whatever, I'm going for it, YOLO.
Okay.
I'm like Taylor Heineke out here.
Yeah, that little bit makes my hate list personally. Making your hate list is Kirk Cousins.
The fact that it makes you uncomfortable is why I keep doing
that's why it's on your love list.
1,000%.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins is on the hate list. Sneakily, Kirk Cousins hasn't really been that good this year. His stats are fine, but it's been so tied to Justin Jefferson making ridiculous, it's not always 4th and 18 one-handers, but his contested catches are really saving Cousins' stat line, and he gets a tough matchup now against the Cowboys.
Cowboys allow the 4th fewest passing yards per game so far this season. And here's a weird stat. In games in which he doesn't score a rushing touchdown, he's averaging 15.5 fantasy points per game, which is whatever. It's fine, but not what you want out of your starter, right? You know, that's more Taylor Heineke level. So, you know, Cousins hasn't always done well with pressure, right? Cowboys actually lead the NFL in pressure rate, 41% so far this year. Cousins 21st among quarterbacks in passer rating when pressured this season. I think they get after Cousins in a big way in this one. He's my QB 13 for the week. So just outside he's a high-end QB 2, not the borderline QB1 he's been previously.
We're overdue a Kirk Cousins game, like a 3-pick game in his next 3 weeks. Cowboys this week, obviously, and then Patriots and Jets, who both have really good secondaries as well. The full Kirk experience is coming. Justin Jefferson can't save him every single week. Seems like no one can save Derek Carr, even Devontae Adams, who has been, outside of that one bizarre game against the Saints where he was sick, has been a monster, but Derek Carr still can't provide fantasy value.
Yeah, and now he has to play the Denver Broncos, who allow 10 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. 10. 7 of the 9 quarterbacks that have faced the Broncos so far this year have scored under 12 points, and that includes Derek Carr in Week 4 against these same Broncos, where he had 11.5 fantasy points. 154 passing yards per game. That's what the Broncos have given up over the last 4 weeks. No team in the NFL has given up less passing yards per game than the Denver Broncos. They're the number 1 pass defense over the last month. They've given up just 6 touchdown passes so far this year. Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr outside my top 20.
Yep. Good luck against that Broncos defense, Derek. Yeah. Good luck against Pat Surtain. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, Thursday Night Football, player props with our friends at BetMGM. The action never stops at BetMGM. Sign up now using bonus code BERRY, B-E-R-R-Y, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Simply download the BetMGM app today or go to betmgm.com and enter bonus code BERRY to make your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. It is risk-free. It is free of risk. Matthew Berry.
Yes, with no risk.
Thank
you. And you know what? And you know how you get that risk-free $1,000 bet? Is again promo code Barry.
Yes.
Who is the hero you may not have wanted, but that you need? Yeah, Nelson Manberry.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Nelson Manberry. Who's got you hooked up, kids? That's right. Hey, I'd like to bet, but I don't want to risk any money. Well, you can do it for the first time for free at BetMGM when you use the promo code Barry.
Let's take a look at some of the most bet props tonight that you can use that risk-free bet on. A lot of King Henry, as tends to be in Titans games. Derrick Henry to score the first touchdown is plus 400. Anytime touchdown scorer minus 200, and over 99.5 rushing yards, which I think we probably both like, is minus 120 the over.
Right.
Still though, against that Packers rushing defense, you have to think the king goes off tonight.
They're 25th against the run over the last 4 weeks, and so Derrick Henry in 5 of his last 6 games has had over 100 yards rushing. They're giving up the 3rd most rushing yards per game that the Green Bay Packers are. They've given up 100 yards to an opposing running back in 5 straight games.
Yep.
And now here comes Derrick Henry, who isn't like other running backs and gets more volume than other running backs. Again, they're going to want to slow the pace down, this, especially considering the game's in Green Bay. They want to take that Lambeau crowd out of it. Yep. They're going to commit to Derrick Henry. No matter what the score is, he's going to continue to get it.
Yep. So, with Derrick Henry, over 17.5 for his longest rush. Like that as well. He's gone over that 6 of 9. I think he's going to have 22, 23 chances just to break 1 against that weak defense.
To your point, the Packers have allowed 8 different carries of 20 yards or more to opposing running backs. That's tied for 4th most in the NFL. So I like that bet as well. I'm on board with that one. I'm on board with Derrick Henry over 99.5 rushing yards there, as you see here. And also, I'm going to say, give me the under on 238.5 passing yards for Aaron Rodgers. Now, it opened at 243, and it's already lowered as of this broadcast to 238, and it'll probably keep dropping down. He's been under this number in 4 of the last 6 games. He's had 30 or fewer pass attempts in 2 of the last 3, including last week when he had a season-low 20 pass attempts. We all saw those big plays and the highlights of the long pass plays to Christian Watson. But the fact of the matter, Jay, is that even last week, even with all those touchdown passes and the Packers winning and Rodgers playing great, he was under this number.
Yep.
He was under this number last week as well. So, give me the under on Aaron Rodgers passing yards today at 238.5. I'm still taking the under.
I like it. Okay, outside of that Derrick Henry longest rush, my other favorite bet is on Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. In China, it's the year of the Tiger. In America, it's the year of the Westbrook. Russ and the Lakers.
Yeah.
Well, the Lakers aren't doing well, but Russ has turned it around. And Nick Westbrook-Ikhine last week, 119 yards and, more importantly, 8 targets. His receiving yards line on BetMGM is only 24.5. Yes, the Packers' pass defense is fine, but at 24.5, I don't think that really matters. It's just about the targets. I think he should see 4+ targets, and that should be enough to take him over 24.5 receiving yards. One thing, if you're going to bet the Titans tonight, wait for news on Jeffrey Simmons. He's their best defensive player. He's questionable. He is the most underrated defensive player in the NFL, or close. He will affect the line, so just wait for that on Simmons.
If he's out, how are you betting this game?
If he's out, then I would probably stay away. But if he's in, I'd be taking the Titans +3. I don't think the Packers are that much better than them.
I would agree with that. I like the Titans +3 again if Simmons is active. Listen, it's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So good luck tonight. Read Love Hate on rotoworld.com. For Jay Croucher, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll be back here tomorrow on the Happy Hour. Thanks for coming by. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.